But then I think we're going to see, again, a trend of AI this, AI that, but then we're going to revert back to, I want authenticity. I just want to see that celebrity. I just want to see that creator. I don't want to watch an AI drafted video. I would say what that taught us ultimately is the snowball effect when it comes to customers and how to leverage different customers to open up more opportunities. From a brand deal perspective, from an AdSense perspective, it's important to have that foundation established. And if you don't have that foundation, it's going to become very problematic to try to expand that audience very quickly.
Hi, Akshay. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Great. So to start off, I wanted to ask, what made you want to go into the creator economy space with your startup?
It's a good question. The journey of Aview and kind of the version 1 of Aview began back in 2017 when my co-founder and I decided to one day start a company in the creator economy. But well before then, my entire focus was actually in the sciences. I was planning to go down the potential medicine route. I was planning to one day become a doctor. And I was actually even doing research at McMaster University in the Alzheimer's and autism field. And so I was really dedicated to the science side. But then one day, my co-founder, Garnet, one of my best friends growing up, he came up to me and said, we watch these content creators every single day. And why not allow them to target international markets? And that was kind of the first kind of the idea that we had. From there, we started to work with translators. We started to work with content creators, and I guess the rest is history. But it was this love and passion for the creator economy. It was the ability to see these lifestyles that these creators were living and to really one day hopefully live that same lifestyle. I mean, that was that vision that I was back in 2016, 2017.
Wow, that's really interesting. Like going from medicine, something completely different in your background, and then now going into sort of the content creation space. So my next question then, I guess, would be, what made you specifically want to focus on like globalizing content as opposed to maybe any other platform or tool that could be used in this space?
So there's a lot of different companies nowadays that are doing various tools and various services to help creators translate content, dub content, and maybe you've come across some of those deep fakes that have trended all across Instagram or TikTok or even X. But back when we started Aview, and at the time it was called Web Translators International, there was not many alternatives for content creators. On one side, you had these corporate translation companies who were charging up to $500-$600 for a single video, a 20-minute video, which was ridiculous. And then content creators didn't want to pay that much money for a translated caption video. And it would take them up to a week to do. And so when Garnet and I started talking about this a little bit more, we saw the gap in the market. We saw that there was a clear translation gap, and we wanted to solve that pretty quickly. Now, did we have any expertise in language or linguistics or anything of that nature? No, right? I mean, we knew as much business as a 16, 17-year-old kid knew. Now, what that allowed us to do is learn a lot and learn very quickly. And so we spent actually almost 8 months, I'd say, just understanding the creator economy, understanding how it is to be a creator, what it's like to sell into the creator economy, what it's like to manage content creators, try to understand from all different angles. So then when we actually went out and provided our service, we knew exactly how to communicate and speak to them.
Yeah, I saw that you guys said on your website, your first client was Logan Paul, who at the time, even when you started in 2017, was probably like one of the biggest YouTubers. So I was curious, like, did you initially reach out to him to work with him, or did he find you guys organically?
Yeah, the story of Logan is a fun one. So we were doing our market research at the time, and we were reaching out to several different content creators for the span of about 6 months. And Logan was one of the creators that we had reached out to. Now, I will phrase this by saying we really just contacted the people that we wanted. And at the time, Logan was booming. I mean, he had just come off of this huge success from Vine. Him and Jake, along with many other content creators. Vine had just shut down. And so you had this influx of individuals who are so used to this short form 7-second content now wanting to create 10, 15. I think he at one point was like almost close to 20-minute long daily vlogs. And we thought in our hypotheses that the best people for globalization of content are people who had long form content, people who had consistent posting, in this case, uploading schedules were daily, and people who were able to capture the attention of many different audiences. And Logan had fell within that domain that we identified. And so we started to reach out to him along with many others. And next thing you know, he replied to one of our emails and he said, yeah, this seems really interesting. I'd love to have a call. So I was sitting in my bedroom. It was about 10 o'clock Eastern time. So 7 o'clock his time. And I was waiting for him to call, waiting for him to call. And eventually, around 11 o'clock my time, I get a call from him. And the call lasts about 30 minutes. And we talk about the dubbing world. We talk about the translation world. We talk about his goals as a content creator. And because, again, we were so young, I was writing everything down with like a dry erase marker on my desk. And my entire desk is full of notes that I wish I took a photo of it. But anyways, that was that initial conversation. After that, we did a couple free samples for him. He saw the return. He saw the benefits that he started to receive. And really the rest is history. And we started working with him. And even to this day, on Logan's main channel, if you go to any of his YouTube videos and you click on the settings option, you can change the audio tracks to Spanish or Hindi. And both of those are done by us.
Wow, that's incredible. So then because you guys started with like such a big client in the very beginning, do you think that helped you with your product development and kind of understanding the audience feedback because he had such like a big audience?
It definitely helped in understanding what we did right and what we could improve on. I would say what that taught us ultimately is the snowball effect when it comes to customers and how to leverage different customers to open up more opportunities. Again, we only really used Aview as a means to pay for university, to a means to pay for some tuition. And we worked on it for about 2 years and then we essentially stopped. We didn't continue the company. We maintained a few customers here and there, but outside of that, it was just a means of money, really. Up until more recently when we started to actually grow this company a lot more, a lot faster. But I would say with any type of big customer like that, it's important to recognize the impact that they can have on a company and how we can use that momentum to consistently get more and more content creators. Obviously, nowadays we've kind of branched out of just the creator economy world and are now working with much larger content producers. But at that time, he also only had about 2 million subscribers back then. So he was known well, but he was still on that up and up. There wasn't really many content creators that were growing as fast as him, as fast as Jake, FusiTube, I mean, these are some of the examples of some of those guys that were growing. But yeah, to answer your question, I would say it is very important to how to use the momentum to keep growing.
I noticed you guys also, like you kind of touched on this a bit previously, but like you guys don't just focus on content creation. You guys also, I noticed you guys do translation for like finance or healthcare or like science. So I was wondering, what was the thought process of kind of branching off into those areas as well?
So when we started to evolve, I guess, the translation company to more of a scalable solution, we realized that a lot of our tools were quite versatile. So they were applicable for not just your typical content creator, but also applicable for larger brands, larger organizations, a more diverse amount of content. So as an example, we did a bunch of work, dubbing, translation, cultural modifications for a mental health association based here in Canada. So that was our first glimpse into that world and realized, wow, there's a huge opportunity here, a lot more than what we initially anticipated. And then after that, we started working with more entertainment companies, started working with some larger sports brands, and then we started working with some more I guess, well or known companies like chess.com. And so things really started to evolve as we realized that, wow, our system can just work and it works really well across so many different avenues. There's no point in just using our translation tool for just the creator economy.
So, as someone who has been doing your startup for so long, like about 8 years now, how have you kind of seen the creative economy evolve over this time?
So when you look at the creator economy, I think it's very cyclical in terms of the trends that we tend to see from, and I'll speak to this more of a content production standpoint, and then we can go to a content consumption standpoint. But we saw that lifespan of really short form content to longer form content, back to short form content, back to longer form content. Now with podcast content, right there, it's just this like endless cycle that we're seeing. And I think it's important for content creators to recognize the viewing patterns of audiences. Now, some people will prefer some variations of content versus others, but it's important to recognize what does your audience gravitate to the most? What do they engage with the most? And sticking to that type of content at the end of the day. I would say ultimately, we're seeing also a huge push in larger brands becoming content creators. So one of the things that we're actually assisting with is the distribution of global content. So it's one thing to translate, it's one thing to dub, it's one thing to culturally modify, but there's another thing to actually get that content into the eyes of international users. And we're seeing brands like Burger King Russia, as an example, or Ryanair is a really common one of being more of a creator than a brand. The way they interact with their audience, the way they engage with their audience, the way they slap back to their audience. I mean, Duolingo is another really good example of a brand that's adopted this kind of creator mentality. And for us, it's amazing. It's really exciting because they're kind of paving the road for these other large brands to follow very quickly. Because if they don't, they're going to be left behind. That leaves companies like Aview opportunity to work with them, expand their audience, and they recognize the importance of content globalization, the importance of pushing social. And so, I mean, that's one trend that we've seen just throughout. And I think it's going to become even more apparent. I mean, take the example of the NBA All-Star celebrity game. I mean, so many of those celebrities started off as content creators, right? The Sidemen charity football match, right? I mean, that blew up. I think they did raise over $9 million or something, just content creators, right? And so we're seeing them push even to a greater extent than what typical brands have to offer.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on how there's certain cultural differences in different countries, and that's something you need to definitely keep in mind when you're expanding internationally. So I was wondering, is that something that you guys kind of keep an eye on or focus on in terms of helping these content creators globalize their content?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that translations are only as good as they are accurate. And there's no point in investing whatever amount of money, even if it's a couple dollars, in inaccurate translations. One of the biggest feedback points that we get from our customers is that they want accuracy. They want the best quality because if people are going to be consuming this content in a different language, they understand that language. They're going to know if something doesn't make sense, if something doesn't sound right. And so it's our duty to make sure that all of that comes out in the most culturally appropriate and sensitive manner. So again, that consumption pattern makes as much sense. Now, those typical, I mean, those who speak different languages know how Google Translate works, how these other translation systems work. It more so focuses on transliteration than translation. Transliteration being the word for word translation without context, so omitting context, versus translation, which is context included. And only a very few AI softwares can ever actually do strong translations with context, which is why a lot of our processes involve some kind of human check at the end of the day. Because there's no point in investing this without, again, having that security of accuracy.
Yeah, like especially with AI now advancing so rapidly, like we're seeing those like AI generated videos, deep fake, that kind of thing. Like, how do you see AI sort of shaping the future of the creator economy?
I think it's going to be like a very big part of the creator economy, until it's not. And what I mean by that is I think people are going to start picking up on what's real and what's fake, even though these deepfakes are getting better and better. I think there's an authenticity that AI will just never have, that human touch that I guess humans have with each other, that AI won't be able to replicate at its core. I think it can get very, very close. But then I think we're going to see, again, a trend of AI this, AI that, but then we're going to revert back to, I want authenticity. I just want to see that celebrity. I just want to see that creator. I don't want to watch an AI drafted video. I mean, even now we're seeing so many people like revising and re-editing all these chat GPT prompts because it sounds so AI, right? And even when you receive a message, receive a text, receive an email, you can tell if it's AI or not AI, right? And so people are becoming more aware of this. And there are obviously humanizers that allow individuals to make it sound like that human touch to it, but it'll never be as authentic. So I think as a AI tool, we're going to see more and more of those, but actual AI creators, even though we have been seeing some of them popping up and some of them succeeding extremely well, I don't see that as a sustainable fact. I think eventually people are going to just want and appreciate that human touch.
So what you're saying is that it's always going to be a tool, but it's not really going to really change the like how the industry really works at its core.
I think it'll if maybe affect productivity. It'll allow people to scale faster, but it'll never like you won't be able to put a couple prompts into ChatGPT or create an AI video and maximize it for 100% engagement or for like full monetization. Like that is ever evolving with watch patterns, with watch time, with human characteristics. I think you can get somewhat there, but you're going to still need that human element in order for it to actually be optimized across all the different social platforms.
Yeah. As someone who's worked with many creators, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that they make when they try to scale their content?
I think the biggest problem that we've seen is when creators do it too early or they do it in a way where they're not caring about accuracy. At the end of the day, every content creator wants to increase the amount of eyes on their content. That's why they're becoming content creators anyways. And some of them tend to go a little bit too extreme right from the get-go. But the way effective globalization works is you want to start with a core market, whether that's your English market or another international native market you're based in. Once you establish that market, then you start seeing signals of different audiences that might be picking up on your videos. This could be an audience that could be watching it because you visited that location or because you do collaborations in that location or because your content resonates across different cultures. Based off of that, there's data that suggests these are then the international markets that are going to be most viable and the best to tap into. Once we look at that, we then figure out where in those international markets and who in those international markets would best consume your content. That's when, I guess with us, we'll hyper focus that content directly onto those specific eyes, create new international channels, distribute that content across those international channels. But again, the biggest mistake at the end of the day is they're going a little bit too fast to scale. They haven't solidified that core audience. And if you haven't solidified that, it's going to be a very tough way to scale that up and onwards.
Is it kind of like they don't really understand what their demographic is? And so when they try to expand even more, it just doesn't work because you never understood what the core audience was?
That's exactly it. I think from a brand deal perspective, from an AdSense perspective, it's important to have that foundation established. And if you don't have that foundation, it's going to become very problematic to try to expand that audience very quickly. Even now, I've had a conversation with a few different content creators who launched courses that were super interested in expanding. But again, a big part of what we're saying is let's first make sure that this captures the attention of English audiences. Once we do that, then we can start really pushing this globally based off of the appetite and the signals that we're getting from the market already.
Do you see the future being pretty much all just independent creators as opposed to like bigger companies or bigger production studios who are distributing content?
I think the production studios are always going to be there. I mean, you're going to have large brands like the Netflix, the Hulus, right? Like the HBOs that are going to be putting together these amazing shows, right? Like investing a ton of money into that. Cause that's a part of our culture to watch that type of content. It's ingrained in us, those movies, right? That's why they've been here for so long. I think independent content creators will definitely grow. I think we're always going to see a rise of that. They're always going to be popular. And I think they're going to be even more popular as time goes on. But I don't see one taking over the other. I see both them complementing each other. I see individual content creators kind of outliving what it is to just post on platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, still maintain their audience, but go on to do much larger roles and much bigger things. Now, is that their end all be all? Absolutely not. I think at their core, they're always going to be an influencer. So they're influencing in some way, regardless on what they're doing. We're also seeing that happen with larger distribution companies and larger brands, production brands, wanting to have these content creators part of their films, part of their movies, part of their shows, because again, they know the power within those influencers directly, right? They know the impact that these guys have. So again, I don't see one surpassing another. I can see them consistently complementing each other, but it's also a very different watch profile, right? Those that are watching influencers versus those that are watching more traditional content that we see, very different. But it'll be interesting to see where the intersect happens and how much of the intersect happens over time.
Yeah, because something I've always wondered was like in the past, say you watch a movie or something, you can tell when it's an independent movie just based on the quality and the production. But I was wondering because of now with like AI and like all these technological advancements, if that would be a barrier that gets lowered and like we can see much higher quality productions from these independent creators and not just big studios.
I think I think to an extent, yes, the barrier is lower, but it's there's still an art to the way, Star Wars does their visual effects, or the way some of these, marquee movies are able to capture the storytelling, the director, the cinematography of that. I don't think AI will ever replicate that or be able to modify that because they're ever evolving with the trends that are happening. They're the ones that are innovating in order to get the data that AI needs to then reproduce. So I think it might be a little bit of a step behind. Question becomes, will it always be a step behind? I don't know, right? That's going to be very interesting to see. But I, I have a good feeling that AI will support these independent filmmakers, but never get to a point where you can compete with the larger studios entirely. I think it's close, but there's always going to be that difference.
Then in maybe the next 10 years, where do you kind of see the creator economy going in terms of how it'll be different from what it looks like today?
I think the biggest thing is going to be the brand side. I think we're going to see brands becoming more and more content friendly and start to post more content that you never thought brands would post. I think that's going to be one big trend. I think the other trend that I think we're going to start seeing is the adoption of more live streaming. I think live streaming content has become very popular and has been adopted by a lot of different types of content creators. I think we're going to see a lot of creators try it, some that are going to succeed and some that are going to revert back to more of the traditional content. Um, that's something that we've been seeing being pushed of recent, especially with brands like Kick and Rumble now entering the live streaming space. But I also think, and we're seeing this as well, and I can only imagine this being even greater over the next 5, 10 years, is content creators becoming and creating their own shows. So one of the ones that we're seeing that's launching, I don't think it's launched yet, but launching shortly is the Paul brothers. So Logan and Jake Paul created a show on HBO, I believe it was, or Hulu, one or the other. Anyways, long story short, so they have that show now. I think more and more creators are going to have that. And I think we're going to see that trend starting to come up a lot more because these large scale production companies realize, again, how much power, how much weight these influencers have.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to now kind of shift the topic a bit. I saw that you went through Techstars back in 2023, and I was just wondering, were there any key takeaways that you took from that program?
Yeah, so I think Techstars is, I mean, Techstars, YC, 500 startups are like the top three upper echelon of accelerators that are out there. And um, when we got into Techstars, it was we didn't really we had an idea as to how we wanted to build Aview. We had an idea as to how we wanted to grow this company, but at the same time, we had a lot of unknowns. And so the Techstar team in Toronto was beyond spectacular. And what I learned from them in particular was the importance of iteration and the importance of moving quickly and being able to make very quick decisions. Not necessarily a kind of a takeaway from Techstars, but from one of my previous accelerators, Next Canada, Next 36, one of the founders, Reza, really had this really clear quote, which was the ability to make decisions with imperfect amount of information. That quote of that decision making really helped a lot, especially during the Techstar days where I had to make decisions. I had to make hiring decisions. I had to make product decisions, had to make sales decisions, fundraising decisions without knowing what the end goal would always pan out to be. But then beyond Techstars, I think the other thing that it taught me was the importance of network and the importance of having, very close peers, founder friends that are out there that are going through the same struggles, that are going through a similar journey. One of the things that as a founder you feel is often this journey is quite lonely, right? You're by yourself, or you're with a small team, or you're with a co-founder. But having that support system alongside you makes that journey a lot easier. And it makes things a little bit more palatable as you go through some of the rockier roads of being a founder.
Absolutely. Do you have any key milestones you'd like to hit for this year with Aview?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones that we're trying to gun for is to hit about 5 billion international views. So we've surpassed our first billion. So we have 4 billion to go. I think we're making some really great strides towards that, especially with our new distribution capabilities. I feel like it's a goal that we can achieve relatively quickly. So after the five, our next one is going to be the 50. And so, we want to scale and want to keep on taking content creators to new international markets, allow them to expand as fast as possible. But I'm really excited to hopefully make some significant strides this year towards that bigger 5 billion view goal.
That's awesome. And to wrap up, I'd like to ask if you could go back to 2017 and meet your younger self who was just starting your company, what kind of advice would you give?
I've said this a lot, and I think I would have told myself this as well, as like, don't sweat the small stuff. I think back in high school, you stressed out about an exam, a test. You stressed out about hanging out with friends. Like it really doesn't matter. Like it matters a lot in that moment because that's what life is. It's that or nothing. But I think I pushed myself a little bit too hard on certain things that I really didn't need to. And I think going back to it all, I would have liked to give myself that relief of, hey, it's okay. It's okay to get a couple extra hours worth of sleep. It's not going to be the end of the world. And I feel like that would be the one message I'd consistently tell myself is like, don't sweat the small stuff. Things are going to be okay. Things are going to pan out the way it should. As long as you have some faith, as long as you do the right thing. And that's even a message that I tell myself today because, you can get caught up in a million different things. But at the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself at the end of the day. I've been in situations where I let myself go and by working extra hours well into the, darkness of the night. And all that caused me was to wake up later in the morning and everything got pushed back. Right. And so you have to understand the gives and the takes towards all of it. So if I had to go back, I'd 100% tell myself that message of, don't sweat the small stuff. Things are going to work out.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Like even now, like as a university student, that's also something that I feel like I need to tell myself. But it's like a bit easier said than done, but it's something I'm working.
It's a lot easier said than done, right? Like it's because you don't know what hindsight looks like, right? You don't know what it's going to look like, an hour later, right? You just don't know. And so, um, everything is so focused down to like, I have to do the best in this. And you should do the best. You should do the best that you possibly can. Again, without having that negative, the law of diminishing returns, without pushing over that.
Mhm. For sure. Yeah. So to end off, if people want to keep up with your doing, Akshay, where can they find you?
Yeah, check out LinkedIn. I try to keep that as updated as possible. Otherwise, my Instagram, I don't really post too much on that, but follow the Aview Instagram. We have some pretty cool updates that will help on that. But really, so it just the LinkedIn is probably the best way to keep in the loop.
Great. Thank you so much for coming.
Of course, thanks for having me.